and welcome to Venture Cafe Presents. I'm Christine Dunn, and joining me here at the Roxbury Innovation Center is Netia McCray. She is the founder and executive director for Mbadika. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, you have a social venture that has a real strong education focus. Can you tell us about it?
Sure. Mbadika, which means idea, is a social venture with a focus on empowering kids around the world who have a great idea to tackle an issue facing themselves or their community and to a physical piece of hardware, and then something that could be applied to their family members or to their communities to actually make real impact or change.
Can you give us an example?
Sure. So one of our students who participated in our workshop came up with this automatic soda can cleaner in time for the World Cup in Brazil, because it wasn't to my knowledge that it was a huge problem keeping soda cans clean. And they came up with this automatic soda can cleaner. It won the Science Fair of Brazil and is now being used in 3 cities to help restaurants actually keep up their hygiene standards when it comes to canned refreshments.
Is that because they were reusing the cans themselves, or was it in the process of recycling they weren't being cleaned very well and so they wanted to make sure it was okay?
Well, when you think about where are cans being stored when they're going between places, in a warehouse that could have rodents or any other kind of insects. And so a lot of restaurants will have to hire someone specifically to spend hours washing cans by hand to make sure they're actually clean enough to offer clients. Instead, that person, instead of having scalding hands because their hands are always in hot water, could just press a button, clean the can, and then serve that to the customer.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
So what inspired you to create this organization and make this happen?
When I was younger, I was very fortunate to have 2 parents who accepted my inner nerdiness and allowed me to destroy things and try to put them back together. Like, they'll go to the Goodwill and get used electronic components, or let me play around with a nail gun and see what I could build. And when I got to MIT, I always had that little spirit inside me, as well as always starting businesses to raise money. And when I did my first international experience, I realized my childhood was very unique, and most kids don't have parents who allow them to destroy things and explore their little engineering techie side. And that's a shame, because people keep thinking that innovation is from a handful of people who are destined from birth to create the impact that is paradigm shifting. Like, people think, oh, Steve Jobs is one of a billion. But really, his talent and his skills are universal. It's just the opportunities he was given was not universal to everyone. Mm-hmm. And so upon that experience, I came back and I saw my childhood home with new eyes. I saw Cambridge with new eyes. And I was like, I've been blessed with certain skill sets that I think everyone else can tap into. And so I decided, let's just do a pilot workshop and see if we can have some youth in Brazil tackle into their inner innovator and entrepreneur. And that pilot went well, and we've been going strong for almost 5 years now. So.
Wow, so do you work mainly here in Cambridge? I mean, I know you have another outpost in South Africa. So tell us a little bit about how you kind of create that international connection.
So my roots are in Florida, but because I was an MIT undergraduate until the past year, my new roots were in Boston, Cambridge. And so while I was being an undergrad and trying to build up the curriculum and programs and stuff, I was like, well, there are kids right here who I can test the curriculum out on, and they can give me their feedback and see whether or not I'm on the right track. So that's what got us started doing workshops in Cambridge. And Venture Cafe actually reached out to us to come here last summer and to do a pilot workshop at the new Roxbury Innovation Center. So that's how we found ourselves here in this space. Mm-hmm. But in terms of our manufacturing in Cape Town, South Africa, we recently started that over the past year, because we started to expand once I finished school and realized that we had clients in Latin America, we had clients in Southern Africa, and shipping from the US wasn't really reasonable of our educational kits. So we decided to take the plunge and open up a manufacturing hub in Cape Town, South Africa, so we can reach those kids who may need a little help with, I have a great idea, but I don't know how to build electronic circuits, or I have a great idea, but I don't know how to work with a laser cutter or 3D printers, or even make stuff from recycled materials in my own backyard. So that's how we became an international venture. We really didn't want to start off that way. We thought we were just going to be a little Brazilian startup company, and then things got crazy. But yeah.
Tell us a little bit about these startup kits that you were describing. I mean, that's become kind of a source of revenue, but it helps to fund all these educational programs.
Well, as everyone knows, nonprofits aren't cheap, especially when they have an international angle to them. So a couple years ago, we decided that we didn't want to just be dependent on grants or wherever the weather is government funding. And so there was an idea I had been playing around with when I was an undergrad, is that I've always been inspired by Legos. Because as a child,
the earrings.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, you've noticed.
Yes. Very innovative, by the way.
Well, you know, I tried. These are actually made on a 3D printer at the Fab Lab at the South End Technology Center.
Oh, great.
But yes, so that's, Susan helped me out with that one, so shout out to her. But no, as a kid, I always was inspired by Legos, even though I couldn't afford them, because a kid like me didn't have $100 to dump on a Star Wars Lego kit. But I always was inspired by the idea that you can give someone a box and they can learn basic tech skills or engineering principles while having fun. And so when I finished doing about a couple of years doing these workshops, I realized that these kids didn't really need me to teach them, like, oh, what is an atom? What is this? What is this material? They learned so much more when I threw them in a lab and I said, here's a hammer, here's a saw, under safety concerns, no one lost a finger, but saying, these are the materials, this is what we're going to build. Now use your imagination to figure out how to get there. And that's what Lego used to offer. And so, well, not used to, they still offer it, but I'm a little older now, I haven't checked. But I wanted to do the same thing for kids who may not have Lego within reach. And I wanted to be more practical if they were going to spend money on it, not just be, oh, it's a T-Rex sitting on your toy shelf. I wanted to be a consumer product they could use in their everyday lives if it's going to be something they have to sacrifice for. So one of our first do-it-yourself kits is a solar USB charger kit that we actually manufacture in Cape Town. And what it is, the kid assembles it and they learn the basics of how do you prototype an electronic circuit and how does a solar panel work, which seems like it may be a strange concept, but people have solar panels on the African continent but have no idea how it works because someone just said, here, this will give you power. So instead, the kids actually learn how it works in order to use it for other things. But at the end of the day, when they assemble it, they have a charger they can use for their mobile phone any day of the year. So instead of it sitting on the shelf and it's like a trophy of accomplishment,
Right.
It's something they built, they understand, and they can use.
And it's practical.
And it's practical.
Wow, that's a great education experience. So in addition to the soda can washer, have there been any other projects that have surprised you that have come out of some of your workshops?
There have been some projects. There was actually one which was a recycling bin system that was for use in Mexico, because there's a law that you can actually be fined if you put glass bottles in a plastic recycling bin. That was something strange to me because I know a lot of people in Boston will be fined heavily for recycling inappropriately. But they wanted to help people who have visual impairment or an audio impairment who may be fined or may be at risk of being fined for putting glass bottle in a plastic container because they can't tell the difference. Most of the time it's either by color, or some Mexican facilities actually had a sound that will play in order to let you know this is glass, this is plastic, so you wouldn't be fined. What my students did is they came up with a system that was based on smell. So poor person who is impaired in terms of their sensory abilities, but they thought having a sense of smell tied with the trash can, as well as a melody, as well as a color, as well as a shape, would actually help reduce fines. And they have a university right now that's employed the system, and they're trying to take it countrywide. So
wow, good for them.
yes, I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed.
Some of the ideas that come out of this. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on building such an innovative company yourself.
Oh, thank you. I'm just, trying to push forward, and we're going to keep hoping that we continue making an impact.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Well, for the Venture Cafe Presents, I'm Christine Dunn.